always, if you would like to skip straight to my analysis of these characters' survival instincts, you can skip to this timestamp right here. It will also be in the description if I remember. I'm just going to be honest with you, I'm not good at remembering to put it in the description, but I will try my best. Other than that, hi everyone. I hope the first week of the new year was good for you. And if you read the title of today's video, then you know I'm going to be ranking characters from the movie Sinners on their survival instincts. Now, I plan on this video being almost like a precursor or an introduction to a video I plan on posting next week. So I'm actually really excited to talk about Sinners in general. Sinners has definitely become one of my new favorite movies after having seen it in theaters twice. But as for which characters I plan on talking about, I went back and forth on who to include, and I inevitably decided to just simply focus on the main characters. And what I mean by the main characters is I mean our core group of characters who are trying to survive the night, along with one other character who is a main character who isn't trying to survive the night. Like, for example, Stack is a character who's not trying to survive the night, but he does constitute a main character. Characters that I was kind of tripped up on is characters like Cornbread or Bo Chow, because I was like, while I would consider them main characters, it's kind of hard to include them or analyze them on their survival instincts because they got before they knew there was even a threat. So it's honestly kind of hard to, analyze their survival instincts if they didn't even know they had to be on guard. You get what I'm saying? So it was characters like that I just decided not to include because I thought it'd be unfair to analyze them for stuff like that. So now getting into my different categories, which I'm going to be scoring each character in each category out of 10. So the most they can get in a category is 10 and the least they can get is 0. But I stole this category breakdown from this video I did a while ago. It will be linked in the description, but basically there are 4 categories that each character will be scored on, and then inevitably I'm going to add up their total at the end of the video, and that will be their final score. Now, getting into the categories. So like I said, I did steal it from a different one of my videos, but I kind of changed it a bit to more so work with the movie Sinners and the characters. So the first category we will simply call red flag. And in this category, we're basically scoring the characters on what they did with the red flags they were presented with. Like, did they see it and decide to make a smart decision after seeing it, or did they just simply ignore the red flag presented right in front of them? The next category we have is initial no, and in this category, this is basically when the danger was discovered and when it was directly presented right in your face. What did the character do? How did they react? How did they try to survive now knowing that there is a threat on their life? The next category is escape plan, and it's basically what plan did our character go through, or what did they do to escape the danger? And then our last category is wit, and it's basically what smarts did they as a character specifically use throughout their journey to escape the danger. And I think this one is going to be a lot more interesting in a way when it comes to scoring these characters, because spoiler alert, a lot of these characters do not end up actually surviving the night. So when it comes to judging them on these categories, it's going to be interesting to score the twists and turns they go to that inevitably have them meeting their fate. So as always, this is your spoiler warning, as I am not going to be going into great detail on the plot of Sinners, but I will be using parts of the story and explaining said parts of the story to justify why I'm giving a character a score in each category. So if you haven't seen the movie, or it's been a while since you've seen the movie, I recommend you go and watch it. I literally watched it last night to create notes for this video and the video I plan on posting next week. But yeah, now let's get into it. The first character we have is Grace. Now, I think I will give Grace a high score on red flags, because I would say the first red flag she notices is when Stack actually ends up passing, and immediately she practically jumps into action. She doesn't do it by herself per se, obviously, because she went to the party with her husband, but when this happens, the first thing she tries to do is get out of Club Juke. She asks Bo to pull the car around so that they can both leave. And so if Bo did end up pulling the car around instead of, becoming a vampire, she would have hopped in that car and would have headed home. I know like a lot of people hate on Grace, especially for the decision she makes towards the end of the movie, but if you're just simply ranking her on her survival instincts, Homegirl tried to leave the first minute she saw danger, and I would say that for that I would have to give her a 10 in that category. So next, for her initial no, when they actually discover that what they are fighting against is some supernatural being, again, one of the first things she tries to do is dip. At every single twist and turn, Grace is trying to leave, but the one thing stopping her is the fact that Bo has not come back and the rest of the group is trying to keep her inside. So I will give her props for wanting to leave again after even finding out that what she's dealing with is vampires, but when it comes to survival instincts, I am going to have to drop her a bit, because after Annie explains to them what vampires are, if I were to hear that information, my reaction wouldn't be to go outside. It would literally be to stay in the juke joint and just wait it out till sunrise. But even after hearing what vampires are, she still tries to go outside. So again, I will give her props for wanting to leave the danger, but it wouldn't have been smart for her to go outside as she was trying to do, because she would have inevitably gotten turned like the rest of the group. So I think honestly I'm going to be a bit harsh and I'm going to give her a 5, because I feel like if we're going out of 10, I feel like 5 is a good middle ground. So yes, 5. Next up, her escape plan. I would say the escape plan happens at the point in the movie Grace makes the decision to let the vampires in, but the escape plan right before that was actually to stay in place. And again, Grace wanting to go outside, I understand that at this point she's been taunted by Remick and she's seen her vampire husband, and they have threatened to go to the store and to attack Lisa. I understand all those things were weighing on her mind, which is what ends up having her make the decision to let the vampires in. But when it comes to the escape plan, I still honestly feel like her waiting till morning, as the group wanted to do, would have been the smartest decision, because she alone could not fight all those vampires by herself. I will give her props for wanting to fight, because even with all these things weighing down upon her, she was still willing to fight the vampires to escape. So I think for the escape plan, I will give her, I'm honestly feeling like a 7. Next up, we have wit. Now, for the wit category, like I said, Grace is the reason that the vampires get in. If she had not invited them in, they would have not got in, and most of the characters on the rest of this list would not have died. As someone who has watched so many vampire movies and TV shows, like, one of the smartest ways ever to protect yourself is to not let the vampire in. So for her to make that decision, and also to not only put herself in danger but put everyone else in danger, it just wasn't a smart survival decision. And what also gets me is the fact that in the fight, when she lets the vampires in, she is literally the first one out of the core group to die, and she dies in flames. So at that point, it was kind of like, what was the point? Now Lisa doesn't have a mom or a dad. So I'm going to give her a 3. Next up, we have Delta Slim. I would argue the first red flag that Delta Slim picks up on is Stack's death, and I would say when it comes to that red flag, he didn't have much of a reaction. I think he was more so trying to mitigate, because he is the one that comes out of the room and tells the crowd to leave, and unknowingly sends all the party guests out to meet their demise. And I would just honestly say that when it comes to red flags, Delta Slim is more passive in his decisions. Like, he's never the leader of the group, he's more so following and helping when he can, which I don't think that is necessarily a bad thing. You're better in numbers, but still, I think I'm just going to give him a 7, because that kind of just feels like a perfect medium, so 7. Next up is the initial no. When he finds out that there are vampires vampires, and that is the biggest danger knocking at their door. Again, I feel like he is more so going along with most of the group decisions. Like when it comes to eating the garlic, he doesn't oppose to it. When it comes to helping everyone suit up to fight the vampires, he isn't opposed to it at all. In fact, there's multiple times where he, along with other characters, chime in when Grace is talking about leaving and he is trying to protect her and tell her to stay. There's also a point in the movie where Sammy is expressing some doubt. He is almost blaming himself for the vampires coming to attack them, and Delta Slim assures Sammy that they're going to have to go through him before they can get to him. So the best thing I can say is I would honestly describe Delta Slim as being a like Neville Longbottom type Gryffindor, which what I mean by that, if you don't know anything about Harry Potter, is that he's not the one in the spotlight trying to be the hero all the time, but he is there when he is needed. And so for that, I, in the initial no category, will give him an 8. Now the escape plan, I would say Delta Slim does a good job of holding up and fighting these vampires by himself, and I think I would have to give him more points for sacrificing himself at a certain point so that the rest of the people, the rest of the core group can escape. I'm not saying that if he hadn't sacrificed himself, he would have survived because I don't know, but I will say that the reason he went out was not because of any stupid decisions he made. It was because he decided to give up his life so that the others could live. And also, he wouldn't have even had to do that if Grace hadn't let the vampires in, you know? So I honestly, for the escape plan, I'm going to give him an 8. When it comes to wit, I think I'm also going to have to rank him high because, like I said, he was more of a group follower. And when it comes to if you're thinking about him as an individual, that's not a smart decision. But again, it's kind of hard to, I don't know, I think it'd just be wrong to fault him for that because he was an older man. I think he had an understanding that, you know, he's lived a lot longer than these people, so he was willing to sacrifice himself. And I don't think that's a stupid decision, if that makes sense. I think it's more of a selfless decision, which if you're trying to make it so that the most people survive, it's technically a smart decision, if you get what I'm saying. So I would give Delta Slim in the wits category a 6. I just feel like I built him up and then I just tore him down, but I feel like it's a 6. Next up, we have Pearline. When it comes to the red flag category, I think I'm going to give Pearline, I think I'm going to give her a 6 because it seems like most of the movie she doesn't know what the red flags are, so therefore she doesn't know how to react to them. And she's not like passive in the same way that Delta Slim is passive. I would say Delta Slim is more calm while she just doesn't know what is happening. She does end up knowing what's happening, but I feel like that goes into the other categories. So I would just say for the red flags, it's not even that she ignores them, it's that she doesn't know they are red flags, so she has no way of identifying them, if that makes sense. Next up, we have the initial no, and I think I will take some points off for her in this category because once it has been explained to her by Annie what they are dealing with, she still is a bit apprehensive in the beginning to go along with the group. And the scene I'm thinking of is when they're in the circle trying to take the garlic. I honestly do not understand why she wasn't simply willing to eat that clove of garlic. To me, at that point, if someone explains to me, hey, we're doing this because we're just trying to make sure everyone in the group is not a vampire, right? We want to make sure everyone else here that we are trusting our lives with is safe. I don't understand why she was so on the fence about doing that. I would just simply rather prove to everyone that I'm not a vampire and eat the clove of garlic and find it disgusting than to possibly get put out because I wasn't willing to do it. So I think for that, again, I'm gonna give her a 6. She was apprehensive to go along with the group, but she still does kind of follow the group. Next up, we have the escape plan. And for the escape plan, I will honestly give Pearline a 9. If you watch the scene where they are getting attacked by vampires, at every turn she is fighting, and then eventually she is the one that ends up saving Sammy from getting bitten by Remick initially. She stakes him in the back, and what ends up getting her killed is the fact that Remick, after her stabbing him, I believe he turns around and bites her, but she is one out of the core 6 in the group to actually make it upstairs, if that makes sense. Because that, I feel like when it comes to the scene where they are upstairs and are about to escape through the second story door, the only people who actually make it up there is Pearline, Sammy, and Smoke. So I'm going to give her a 9. When it comes to wit, I think I want to give Pearline an 8. I do think she is smart with most of her decisions. I just think, again, like I said in the early category, she's just a bit apprehensive in the beginning to, jump into action. But once she is needed, once she needs to defend herself and protect herself, she does do it. So I'm gonna give her a 9. Next up, we have Stack, which I was a bit iffy on including him because of when he gets turned into a vampire, but I thought it'd be fun to kind of analyze his categories up until he becomes a vampire, because there were a bunch of red flags and other stuff that happens that could have allowed him to know that he was in danger. So when it comes to the red flag, I feel like the first red flag that he and I would say other members of the group ignored was Remick and the other vampires coming up to the door. I've seen people on TikTok talking about how when they are singing Pick Poor Robin Clean, Stack is the only one kind of bopping his head to it. And though I would have to give him some points for turning the vampires away, I do not think it was smart on his part or Mary's part, but we'll get back to her later. I don't think it was smart for them to both collectively be okay with her going outside. I'm not saying he like controls her, that was her decision fully, but he is the one who gives her the gun to go out there. And I feel like he could have been a bit more like, hey, I don't want you to go out there alone, because Mary is the reason he inevitably gets turned. So when it comes to the red flag category, I would give Stack a 4 because I feel like he ignores the red flags. It's not even that he wasn't aware of them like Pearline. I just think he ignores them. So yeah, I think 4. The initial no. Now I think this one is a bit hard to rank Stack on, because I think the minute he finds out he is in danger is the minute he actually gets bit. Actually, no, I think there were definitely for sure signs before that there was something wrong with Mary when she came back inside. Because when she comes back inside, it's almost like her tune has changed, if that makes sense. Like before in the party, she is going around. She's not necessarily following Stack, but at every turn, they've almost been fighting. Like they start at the beginning of the night fighting and she's mad at him for good reason. And then they have some sort of resolution where he does in fact admit to her that he does love her. But even at that point, he left her there crying. And then when she comes back inside after having been outside with the vampires, that's when her entire tune has changed and she's trying to get him alone. And it kind of crosses the line into the red flag territory, but I also think my danger senses would have for sure been going off if I've been kind of mean to someone all night and then they switch to being very nice to me even after I've been mean to them. So I think he could have possibly picked up on something there and known that there was some sort of danger, especially when she does get him into the room by himself. She is still acting weird. So for that category, the initial no, I think I'm going to give Stack another 4. Now, when it comes to the escape plan category, I honestly feel like Stack didn't necessarily have a chance to escape. So again, I do feel like it's a bit hard to rank him on that, but I do kind of have to give him a 0. I think honestly, just to keep it fair for the other characters, because he doesn't escape, versus the other characters do in some way do escape until their death. So I'm gonna give Stack a 0. When it comes to wit, I feel like if it was any other person who had tried to turn him into a vampire, he possibly would have survived. I feel like because he loves her, that is the reason. Like, he also didn't pick up on the red flag. His wits were affected. His guards were turned off because he didn't believe he had anything to fear with her. So I think I'm going to give him a 3 in wits. Next up, we have Annie. Now, I have to admit, after watching the movie for the 100th time and taking my notes, I will definitely say that when it comes to the red flags, Annie is on top of it from the jump. She doesn't ignore any red flag presented to her, not when they first come to the door, not when Stack gets killed. At every single turn, she is trying to figure out what is the danger and figure out a way to get rid of the danger or to save themselves from the danger. So I'm going to have to give her a 10. And I will also have to give her a 10 10 in the initial no category, because at first she's thinking that the thing attacking them are Haints, but when Stack escapes the back room and she splashes him with garlic, which on her part was just her guesstimating, because again she thinks that she's dealing with Haints, and once she splashes Stack with garlic, that's when she knows they are actually dealing with vampires. She immediately tells the group that they need to gear up because vampires are a completely different beast to deal with. So yeah, again, she's getting a 10 because she is ready from the jump. Next up, we have the escape plan, and on this category, I'm actually going to score her a bit lower because when Grace lets the vampires in, she is fighting, but I believe she is the second person to die from the vampire fight, and that is because she, I feel like, in a moment of excitement, lets her guard down. Like, I believe she looks at Smoke and she goes to tell him something, and in that moment when her guard is down, Stack comes and bites her. She is one of the people who doesn't make it to that second story, and it's not because she sacrificed herself like Delta Slim, it is because she just had a momentary slip up, and in that slip up she got. So for that, I think I am going to give her a 7. Actually, I think I'm going to give her a 6 because she was doing so well up until that point, and she was really holding her own until that one moment. And then again, I think I'm going to give her a 9 for wit because I feel like she is one of the main reasons most of the group initially survives, but I just feel like just that one moment is just what took off that one point. And what also kept it so high is her preparing herself, because she goes in a back room and she discovers that there's a possibility that she is going to die that night, and she makes Smoke promise to kill her before she turns into a vampire. And so that is another reason as to why I didn't take her down a few more points, because again, she is just prepared. She is smart at every turn except that one moment. So a 9. Next up, we have Smoke. When it comes to red flags, I think I'm going to give Smoke a 6. And I say that because I feel like I can't give him a 7 like Delta Slim, because while I feel like Delta Slim is just kind of a bit more passive and following the group, I think Smoke almost kind of shuts off right after his brother dies, and I completely understand, but still, we're trying to rank them on survival instincts, and you still have to survive after your brother's death. And at this point, I feel like he turns off and he gives Annie the reins in the situation, and he kind of just follows whatever Annie tells him to do. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but that's why I'm going to just give him a 6. Not for following Annie, but I guess for just kind of like seeing the red flags and then just kind of being like, okay, and then looking to Annie for the answers. Next, the initial no. I think I'm going to give him a 7 in this category, and the reason I give him a 7, the specific scene I'm thinking of is when Annie tells him that, you know, there is a possibility that Stack is a Haint and they need to get him out of the room. They need to get rid of his body because he poses a danger to the rest of the group. He insists on keeping Stack's body in the room, and that alone puts everyone else in danger. I mean, I understand it was his brother, but still, like, once you find out there is danger, you still want to keep the danger in the room with everyone else. But I won't take him down too much, because when Cornbread comes to the door and he attacks Smoke, Smoke does a really good job at defending himself. I mean, if he wasn't quick with that gun, he would have been gone. He would have been one of them. Smoke and Stack would have been vampires. So I think a good balance number, I'm thinking like a 7.5. Next up, we have the escape plan, which I think Stack, oh, not Stack. If I ever say Stack in this category, just know I'm talking about Smoke. But I think Smoke has 2 times where he has to escape. That's initially with the vampires, and then when Hogwood and his gang comes back to the juke joint. And I would say Smoke is literally the only other person beyond Sammy to survive the night. Everyone else gets obliterated. So I think I'm gonna have to give him high points for that. He is able to hold his own when they do have to escape. And then when he is trying to survive and go after Hogwood and his men, he gets shot in the the stomach, and that's what inevitably causes his demise. But before that point, I think he still does a pretty good job at holding his own, right? He was one person fighting. I didn't completely count how many people was there, but I know it was like at least 8 people that he smoked on his own. Not a single one of Hogwood's men or Hogwood got out of that situation. And again, Smoke is just one man. So I honestly would have to say that when it comes to Smoke's escape plan, I am going to give him a 10 in that category. Because yeah, he really does a good job at holding his own. So 10. When it comes to wit, I honestly think I'm going to give Smoke a 9. The only thing that I took the point off for was that it took him just a little bit of time to get his wits back together after his brother's death. And again, I understand, but those survival instincts needed to kick in faster. So other than that, like I said, especially with the escape plan category, he does do a good job. I think his brother is just simply his kryptonite, obviously. So taking a point off, but still a 9. Next up, we have Mary. Mary's initial red flag is when she goes out to talk to Remick and his little vampire gang is the way they speak to her. If you listen to the dialogue back and forth, not only are both of Remick's vampire, the couple that he turned, repeating everything that Remick says, but they are acting very cultish and very weird. And I think she does a good job when she decides to pull a gun on them, but I just also don't think it was a smart decision for her to go out there alone. I mean, I understand why she did it, but even having the gun on you, 1 against 3, if anything turns sideways, is just not the best thing to do. So I think for her red flag category, though she does pick up on the red flags, she does put herself in that situation. So I would say I'm gonna give her a 6. Next up, we have the initial no, and I think I'm honestly gonna give her a 3. And the reason I say that is because once she initially knows that she is in danger, when Remick is almost about to bite her, she does pull out the gun. But the thing about it is she turns her back, and that is what gets her got. I feel like she should have walked back to the club with the gun in hand, facing them, because her turning her back is what allowed Remick to attack her. I don't think she should have turned her back, so that's why she's getting a 3. And then when it comes to the escape plan, like Stack, I'm going to give her a 0 because I just want to be fair to the other characters, and she doesn't escape. In fact, she is the reason that more people get turned initially, so 0. Next up, we have Wits, and like Stack, I'm going to give her a 3. No, I think I'm going to give her a 4. I just feel like while Stack was blinded by the fact that the person who was danger to him was Mary, I think Mary had her guard up, but she still just kind of made some wrong decisions that allowed her to meet her fate. So she's getting a 4. Last but not least, we have Preacher Boy Sammy. When it comes to the red flag category, I believe I'm going to give Sammy a 7 because I feel like he does also go along with the group like Delta Slim and Smoke, but it's more so like he is on guard. He just needs to know where he needs to be, if that makes sense. He just wants to help in any way he can because he already kind of blames himself for what is happening. So yeah, I think because of that possible guilt from blaming himself, he's just where am I needed? I just want to be helpful because I don't want to cause any more damage. So I'm going to give him a 7. At the initial no, I think I'm also going to give Sammy a 7. And the reason that he drops some points is because when Remick comes back to the door, when he has taunted Grace, he tells the group, hey, I will let the rest of you live if you just give me Sammy. And Sammy starts to walk to go out the door. And I'm just the only reason he didn't become a vampire at that point in time is because the rest of the group stopped him. So that's what dropped him some points for me. But other than that, he is also vigilant about the danger in front of them. So 7. Next up, we have Escape Plan. And this one, I'm a bit iffy on what points to give him because I honestly feel like when they are getting attacked by vampires, one of the main reasons Sammy survives is because people keep saving him at every turn. Especially when they get upstairs, the reason he doesn't get bitten by Remick is because Pearline stabs Remick with a stake, and then she gets got, and then he makes it outside because Smoke fends off Stack from getting to him, and then he gets outside. And then he does actually defend himself by hitting Remick over the head with the guitar, but what actually ends up killing Remick is the fact that Smoke comes back outside and stakes Remick through the heart. So again, like at every single turn, there is someone there saving him. So for that, I would say I think I'm going to give him a 6 because I think he wouldn't have made it out without all those people basically sacrificing themselves for him to get there. So yeah, instead of a 6, I'm going to give him a 5. I just feel like that's a good even ground. When it comes to wits, I think I'm gonna give Sammy an 8. I think he is pretty smart and proactive about the situation going on in front of them, and he just kind of like when people tell him to do stuff, he does it, and he just does the best that he can with what he's given, if that makes sense. And again, I do think him hitting Remick over the head with the guitar was the smartest decision he could make at that point. He had no other weapon, so he used his instrument as a weapon. So yeah, I think just 8 is a good, like, yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to tally up everyone's final score, and I will be right back with you. Okay, so I have done all the math. I have added everyone's scores in each category together, and now I'm going to give you our official list of everyone's score. We are going to start at the bottom with the person with the lowest score and go all the way to the top to the person with the highest score. So starting off at the bottom, we have Stack with 11 points, Mary with 13 points, Grace with 25 points, Sammy with 27 points, Delta Slim with 29 points, Herline with 30 points, Smoke with 32.5 points, and Annie with 35 points. So that is everyone's official score. If you would have given people a different score, or you have a different ranking from who you would put at the top and who you'd put at the bottom based on their survival instincts throughout the movie of Sinners, please feel free to put that in the comment section down below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Like if you like it, subscribe if you want to see more of me. Again, next week I plan on coming out with my Sinners movie analysis, so feel free to come back next week and see that if you want. I hope you have a good weekend, weekday, weeknight, and bye!